Hello and welcome back to both of us to Random Librarian here on YouTube. It's been a while. Sorry about that. I do have a couple backlog videos to post and I filmed at least one other that will take a little bit more editing, but we're back. We're starting again. So today's video is going to be all of the books I brought home with me to France from my home with my parents in the US. And this time it's a little different. Last time, which is the backlog video that happened in July because I was home over the summer, I only had a carry-on bag and carry-on suitcase. This time I was able to check a bag, so most of my clothes and things I was bringing back to France with me were in the checked bag. So I had a couple books, I think, in that bag. I was 0.3 under the weight limit. I was so proud of myself. But most of the books you're gonna see I did have in my carry-on backpack and like a tote bag. Because no one actually weighs your carry-on bags, even though apparently there's a limit on it, I think. But no one checked, so if I could carry it, I figured I was okay. And I could, and I did. And here we are. Okay, let's get started. So, I have this on audio as well. It's so incredible. Of course, I don't need to tell you this, but The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett has won so many book club prizes for, I think it's also won awards. If it hasn't, it definitely should have. And it's a hardcover version because a friend gave it to me. So that one was definitely in the checked bag and not in my carry-on. Another hardcover book that I have, I think this was also a gift, Family of Origin by C.J. Hauser. Either a gift or I won it on Bookstagram. Not entirely sure. One or the other. But that was also in the checked bag. I wanted to put the hardcover ones in the checked bag because they're a different size than a different weight than all of the other paperbacks that I'm going to be talking about. All right, I guess we'll just dive in and discover what I brought together. All right, first up we have a book that I'm about a quarter of the way into, and that is Winter's Orbit by Everina Maxwell. This is a political space opera, almost thriller, romance, and the two leads are men, and I think that there is an entire explanation on genders that are not binary because they're in space and aliens are the whole cast of characters, so obviously sex is not going to be binary. It's an arranged marriage between a political figure from one country and the brother of the political figure he was supposed to marry. So, lots goes on. If I remember, it was getting slightly too complicated for the summer read that I wanted, so I just had to, be in the right mood and pick it up again. Next up, this is another one that I have read part of. I've read about half of this one, and it's a doozy. So that's Docile by K.M. Sparza. And this is science fiction slash speculative science fiction slash it feels a little too real sometimes, in that the big quote on the back is just "there is no consent under capitalism," and the main character essentially sells the rest of his life so that his family can be out of debt, and he is therefore termed as a docile, and normally docile, so indentured servitude, they are given a sort of drug as a way of keeping them docile, as a way of keeping them from, outwardly showing signs of being upset that they are being kept as like a pet slash servant. But Elisha decided that he's not going to take the drug, and that is going to be his one rule for his owner going forward, because his mother was when she was a docile, never kind of came back. And then it goes into, instead of it being a drug, it's kind of everything is his choice, but not really, because if there isn't another choice, it's not really a choice. And I'm in the middle because they're starting to, it's hard to say fall in love because he can't give consent, but it is kind of a romance. don't know, the lines really get blurry and that's why I put it down, but I have to finish it. I also have this beautiful bookmark in the middle of the pages, so I will at least be using that in another book. And it alternates between Elisha and Alex, and Alex is his owner, and it just makes it even more muddled because you're in the thoughts of the person who doesn't think it's wrong that he's continuing with what was done before, and then you're in the thoughts of the person that he is actively, you know, brainwashing. It gives a lot of heavy, but it's incredibly well written and makes you think, for sure. Then we have The Bar Harbor Retirement Home for Famous Writers and Their Muses by Terry Lynn DeFino. And I have had this for years and years and years. It's not very long, so I figured it should come on with me. I think it is what it says on the tin. It is set in Bar Harbor. It's a beautiful area in New England. It just feels like it could be a fun story because we have, you know, literary folk living in this area and then meeting other people, and suddenly is what we're living going to be part of a book? Is the living like just what it is? Or like lines kind of blur between fact and fiction. And I just think, I don't know, it's always sounded like it was gonna be fun. I just haven't been in the mood to pick it up. This I picked up at a secondhand bookshop in Boston years ago. After that, I have Maybe in Another Life by Taylor Jenkins Reid, which was a gift or a little free library find and then a gift with Anna from Girls Who Read Around on Bookstagram. And she's a big fan of TJR. I have mixed feelings about TJR, but that's a whole other video, I think. And I don't know if this was her, I don't think this was her favorite of the books that this author has written. She was a big fan of The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, as was, you know, most of the internet. But sometimes you just need a rom-com, so came home with me. Next up, to get into some fantasy, I have a book by Robin Hobb. This is Dragon Keeper, Volume 1 of the Rain Wilds Chronicles. I love dragons. I feel like I need more dragons in my life. I've been told to read Robin Hobb a million times, so I figured, why not start with this? Again, this one I found in a secondhand bookshop, this time from a small town on the south coastal area near Boston. So it's south of Boston, near the water, and they have a great little used bookstore that's associated with the library. So I picked that up there. And we have something that I just want to reread because I love Neil Gaiman, and it's The Ocean at the End of the Lane. I left the illustrated copy at my parents' house, and then I just brought the little paperback copy home with me. This is a hardback that is the size of a paperback, so it made it into the carry-on bags, and that is Nightboat to Tangier. I picked this up the last time I was in New York, actually, and it was in a box that said, "To a Good Home outside of Books Are Magic in Brooklyn," which is owned by Emma Straub. And this is, I believe, by an Irish author, which is kind of just an auto read for me. Okay, it is two longtime partners in the lucrative and dangerous enterprise of smuggling drugs, and they are waiting for the estranged daughter of one of these esteemed criminals to make a journey back on the night boat from Tangier. And this nocturnal vigil will initiate an extraordinary journey back in time to excavate their shared history of violence, romance, mutual betrayals, and serial exiles, rendered with the dark humor and hard-boiled Hibernian lyricism that have made Kevin Barry one of the most striking and admired fiction writers at work today. So, that seems like it'll be an interesting read. What else do we got in this bag? Another one that I have not read that everyone says I should read is A Gentleman in Moscow, and I remember when this came out, I was working in a public library and the wait list for this book was insane. And the books that we had that were on short loan were always out. The second it was on the display of 2-day loans, it was gone. Next person who walked by took it. So I think it's finally time for me to read it. I don't really remember what it's about, and I'm not gonna read the back because sometimes that is more fun to find out as you go. Next up, we have a book that I got as an advanced reader copy in May of 2021, and I have not read it yet, so I'm very far behind, but that is called The Plot by Jean Hanff Korelitz, and from what I remember, this was the kind of thriller story of I think he's a teacher or a professor or a TA of some kind, and his student tells him, I've got the best plot in the entire world in a writing course. And he's like, yeah, whatever. And then that student dies, and the teacher finds the plot and is like, dang it, he was right. That is the best plot in the entire world. So he publishes the book and then starts getting mysterious messages about how someone knows what he's done. And also maybe that student wasn't just, died deceased of natural causes. Perhaps he was murdered for his plot and his intention to use it. So what is that going to mean for our TA who has published the plot? Dun dun dun. Doesn't it sound good? Then we have Pretty as a Picture by Elizabeth Little. And from what I understand, this is kind of Me Too-ish, but with a murder mystery. It says an egomaniacal movie director, an isolated island, and a decades-old murder. The addictive new novel from best-selling author of Dear Daughter. A wickedly funny exploration of our cultural addiction to tales of murder and mayhem and a thrilling behind-the-scenes whodunit, Pretty as a Picture is a captivating page-turner from one of the most distinctive voices in crime fiction. So this kind of feels fun. It feels like there's maybe multiple plots going on, and just, I don't know, struck my fancy. So, Pretty as a Picture. There we go. Next up, we have Lesser Evils by Joe Flanagan. This I picked up at the Mysterious Bookshop in New York City. So I have a video on my channel from pre-COVID times for sure, and it was a trip that I did to visit a friend, and while I was there I went to a bunch of bookshops and asked the booksellers for their best recommendation of the year because it was end of year. I think I was there for New Year's, so this was what he recommended, and it is a mystery novel because all of them are in this place, and it takes place on Cape Cod, which is actually like an hour from where I grew up, and it's where my mom grew up, so I figured why not. Then we have The Unexpected Spy, which I got at the American Library Association conference in like 2019, and this is a memoir from a woman who worked in the CIA and the FBI, and her work to take down terrorists. She starts off as I read part of it, I need to finish it for sure, but she starts off in college at a sorority, and I think she gets the interview on the phone when she's like sitting on one of those, do you remember those neon chairs that were like, you had to blow them up and they were just like air, but like with that really squeaky plastic neon on it? That's where she got the phone call that she was going to be part of the CIA. So it's just kind of comedy of errors, comedy of steps, an unexpected person, as it says, The Unexpected Spy. And I've been on a really big nonfiction kick, so I figured I had to bring at least one nonfiction book home with me. Next up, we have Alex Morrell's Helen and the Grand Bees. This was a Christmas swap that I did last year with some friends across the pond, and they absolutely loved this, and I didn't look too much more into it. I think it's a generational family kind of tale. This is my little note from them that I'm going to use as a bookmark when I start reading it. Basically, if a friend recommends a book to me and says, I think you will like this, you can bet on it that I will read it. So that is what that is, and that is what I'm going to do with it. Alright, I think we're coming to the... Oh, no, there's more. There's more in here. Okay. Ugh. And There we go. All right, we're coming towards the end. There's another 5 left. This is another advanced reader copy I got, I think from the American Library Association conference, and this is called You Again, which is when a woman is walking down the streets of New York City in her, what, 30s? And she's like, you know, my life is whatever. And she sees the coat that she wore when she was in her 20s and someone who looks startlingly like her down the way getting out of a taxi. And she's like, what? And then when she approaches her, she notices it is her. And so it's this sort of time warp. Can I change the past if I speak to my past self? What is my past self doing in my present? Am I in my past self's present? What is going on? So it just seems like a fun way of exploring not necessarily time travel, but identity. And it says memory, desire, and regret. So I figured it could be fun just to kind of give that a read. Also, the cover's really cool. Next up, we have The Red Lotus by Chris Boljalian, which I know I got at the American Library Association conference because I got it signed by him. It says, libraries rock, librarians rule, which he is correct. Both of those things do. So this is a story of 2 people who meet. One's a doctor and the other was her patient, and they slowly fall in love over the course of, I think, 6 months. And then when they decide to go on a trip together, they go to Vietnam to do a bike tour, and the boyfriend disappears. And suddenly there are all of these questions as she's trying to figure out what happened to him, of is he who he says he was? Why did he bring her here? Like, is there some sort of nefarious reason behind everything? And there we have it. He likes his twisty-turny books. He likes his twisty-turny plot points, and this came out right before The Flight Attendant came out on HBO, which is with Kaylee Kuko. I think that's how you say that. So if you like that show or you liked that book, he's got a million more. He's got just, let's see, does it have a list of his previously published books? Yeah, he's got so many stories published and even plays. So there we have it, Chris Boljalian. And he was really cool in person. Next up, we have a book that I got as an advanced reader copy that was mailed to me when I was living at the beach, and that is Still Life. I'm not normally the biggest fan of just straight historical fiction, but something about this grabbed my attention. It's the story of Ulysses, who was in Tuscany in 1944 as a soldier. Then he goes back home, and then he gets an inheritance that sends him back to Italy, and it's kind of just following his life. So we'll see what goes on there. If nothing else, the cover is stunning. Then we have The Witch's Heart, which is a hardcover book, and it was given to me by Shelby after she had read it, I believe. And this I had left at the beach, and then my brother's girlfriend read it because they lived at the beach after I lived at the beach, and she really enjoyed it, so I think it's finally time for me to read it. It reminds me of those Greek god retellings, except this time it's Norse retellings. It's someone who falls in love with Loki, which just seems like a bad idea. And then finally, we have a book that I picked up at a little free library in Boston right before I was set to fly, because I couldn't restrain myself, and that is The Good Ones. Or one of the good ones, sorry. And I had seen this on Bookstagram for just a while, and people were loving it, and people were talking about it, and it's stunning. So I am just really excited to read it and probably have my heart broken by it. So here's what the back says. They say she had a bright future ahead of her, and she was a star whose light burned out too soon. She was going to make a difference. It's all true, but it's not the truth. Kezzy was more than her brains and her grades and her voice. She was more than her future. She had a past. She was living her present. She was my sister before she became your martyr, after all. So that seems like it's going to hurt quite a bit. And there you have it. Those are the 20 books that I managed to squeeze into my bags from my flight back to France from the US. And I'm pretty proud of myself for getting 20 whole books into mainly my carry-ons. I also brought back some things that are book related but not books. And those are 2 candles from my best friend from high school. So she got me this one, which is called Blackberry Pie. It's from the Banned Books collection from North Ave Candles. So it has a little library card due date label. And this is the scent that they chose for Toni Morrison's Beloved, which was the first book we read together in English class. And because she's the best and knows me very well, she also got me the Gardens of Pemberley scented one, which is obviously from Pride and Prejudice, Jane Austen's, and also has a library lending card as the cover. That one also came with this cute little silver heart charm on top of it. I don't really know what I'm going to do with it just yet, but first things first, I am not going to lose it because I think it's very cute. And yeah, those are my little gifts that were book related but not books. Since I no longer live in an Anglophone country, I have been reading a lot more backlist titles. There's things that like grab my attention as opposed to things that are the newest book to be published. And I've actually really enjoyed it that way. So I brought back more of these backlist books with me and I'm excited to give them a read. If there were any titles in here that you were like, ooh, you have to read that immediately, please let me know in the comments so I know what to prioritize, because it's 20 books. That's a lot. And yeah, let me know any of your thoughts down there. Give it a like if you liked it. Subscribe if you'd like to see more from me. And in any case, that's all I got for you today. Bye guys.